Social media is not what you think it is. In fact, you've been told a lie all of your life, and the sooner you can come to realize this, the better you will be in your journey as a Christian, how you're able to navigate the modern day world. And if you are a Christian watching this and you do have goals, you want to live a fruitful and ambitious life where you can look after and provide for the people around you, you need to learn how to navigate social media. But for me to illustrate this point better, I want to talk to you about the Pharisees. Now, the Pharisees were a Jewish group. You'll find that if you are reading the Bible, they're mainly featured in the New Testament in and amongst the time of Jesus, and you'll always find that Jesus was in conflict with the Pharisees. He was always going on, sometimes there'd be arguments, confrontations. There's been amazing instances where he has shown that, he is Jesus and he's done Jesus things. There was one instance where he basically read their mind, so he'd basically be able to foresee all of their verbal traps that they would try to lead him into, because the Pharisees were obviously threatened by Jesus. So what they would do is they'd set up these traps. If he was healing on the Sabbath, if he was doing something that was unlawful or unrighteous in the eyes of the Pharisees, but he would see all these things. His knowledge, his omnipotence would always allow him to come out on top, and other people would eventually see that. Now, the Pharisees, in terms of what they were a strong Jewish group at the time. They were known for their obedience of the Torah. And the thing with the Pharisees is that they made their actions very loud and clear, in the sense that they would always make it known to draw attention to themselves. They would want to, it's basically seeking validation for their practices, for their faith. And without that attention, without that validation, they realized that they wouldn't be as powerful. And that's why they were so threatened by Jesus, because he came in and was able to heal people. And Jesus taught us obviously through parables, which are amazing. There's incredible wisdom in there and guidance that we can use. But the thing with Jesus, that he developed our faith by showing us. He allowed us to believe and see the many miracles that he performed. The Pharisees did not have that power, so they were willing to do whatever it was that they could do to put Jesus in a negative light. And sometimes it worked, and eventually it did work. But this is where the seed was planted for the people around Jesus at the time. His disciples were with him. They too saw the miracles and the works of Jesus, which are very well documented in the New Testament, which I always urge people to read, because that is a true glimpse of the power and essentially the aura of Jesus. But the Pharisees, how do the Pharisees link into social media? Now, in the world that we live in today, it's very, very different to what was at the time of Jesus, and furthermore the Old Testament. There was no social media, there was no Facebook or TikTok or Snapchat or whatever it was, but the social economics, as it were, still remain to this day, in the sense that there are still groups of people that you will see online, and you'll notice that they always need to make a fuss. They always need to make it known as to what they're doing. Very simple example, and it's terrible to see. You will see people where they will, and it's good to do good. I absolutely love this. I want to do more of it myself this year especially. But you will see people on social media film themselves going to give and donate to homeless people, which makes no sense whatsoever. You can still give to homeless people without having to put it and plaster it all over the internet. Imagine if you were down on your low days, life had just dealt you an unlucky hand and you were just going through it, right? You would not want someone coming up to your face with a camera, giving you all these things. You'd feel humiliated. It's not a nice feeling. You also see people that declare themselves as Christians. They plaster Bible verses all over their bio. They make it known that they're doing all these things that are seen as righteous, but yet if you actually look at their actions, they're in a club, they're drinking, they're boozing, they're binge drinking, they're gossiping, they're doing all of these unruly things that do not align with what a Christian is. And these basically make up the modern day Pharisees. And the reason why I want you to be careful when it comes to social media is because these Pharisees are everywhere. These Pharisees, lukewarm Christians, they pretty much go hand in hand, and it's hard to distinguish the two nowadays. But if you are a new Christian, or if you are a rooted Christian, you're just using social media to follow people, learn new ways to interpret the word, it's very, very hard to navigate. And I just want to give you the information that I know and I found, and you will find people that appear on the outside as rooted Christians that you should be following. But then if you look at their actions, you will find that there is a lot more that meets the eye, and you'll find that they're not really as ideal, they're not really the role models that you should be working towards. I saw a video of someone who had been baptized and gave this big spiel about being baptized and what it meant to them. Absolutely great. It's not for me to dismiss that. A quote that I would love to say here is, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. I've done many sinful things in my past, so it's not for me to say that. But this very person had been baptized, maybe say a month or two ago, but then 3 months later, he's on a yacht, and I see girls all over the place, other guys there, and just not doing very righteous things. Righteous is not the right word, but you can see the point I'm trying to make here is, this person had a big social media following. They had, done the whole thing about being baptized, but then their actions are saying one thing. So you've got to think, if you're as a Christian or getting into social media, you're following these people, you following that person, you may interpret that as thinking, right, well, I've been baptized, now I've got a free pass to do basically anything I want because it's okay because I've been forgiven. That is not how it works at all. I've always said on videos time and time again, being a Christian is a job, and it's a very hard job to do. You're not free from the trials, you're not free from the tribulations, you're still going to be tested, there's still going to be sin, there's still going to be temptation, all of it is still going to exist, but it's as a Christian where you've got to root yourself and allow God to guide you, allow the Holy Spirit to fill you, and make sure that you're making the right decisions. So when it comes to navigating through these modern day Pharisees, it's a very simple process. I don't have to give you like a toolkit or I don't even have to name people, because you'll find that the process is still the same, the actions are still the same. What someone says and what someone does is two very, very different things. For example, how I speak to you is how I would speak to anyone. I'm not one to, forcefully put the word on people, but how I like to see it is, if I can shine so bright myself and impact so many people, naturally other people are going to see that. I have a lot of discipline in my life, a lot of rigour, that then has impacted the people around me, whether it be in my Bible study, my loved ones, friends, work colleagues, whatever. I always like to posture myself where I can lead by example, and I understand that because I am what I do, not what I say I'll do. Everybody loves to talk a big game. And the thing with these modern day Pharisees is, even back in the time of Jesus, they would always love to make it known of inciting all these rules and saying you must do this and look at how good we are, and trying to paint their own light. And you don't get to do that. It's God that decides that, and it's your actions that decide that, because eventually you'll get to heaven and Jesus will say, as we all famously know, I do not know you. So you've got to look at these people and think, are they the best example of what a Christian should be? And that's not for me to answer. It's never going to be for me to answer. It's not really for you to answer, but you'll know, because you'll be able to receive their stuff and something will feel off. You'll know that there'll be just a hint of doubt and think, is this person really authentic? And it's hard, because what you'll come to find is that a lot of these people are not worth following. They're not ideal. Even I'm not ideal. There's stuff that maybe I speak about that is too harsh cutting, that is not in my place to say. Maybe that is, and eventually with maturing, with growth, and I'll come to realise that, maybe feedback from you guys. So this isn't even a video to say that, go on and follow those people and don't follow those people, but instead come and follow me. Not that whatsoever. You should be the one to make your own decision. If anything, this video, I want to give you autonomy to be able to think, this person is good for me to follow, I'm going to consume their content. This person I followed for a while, but I've seen what they're actually posting on their stories, and it's not really the best thing to do. Consumption is one of the driving forces in the modern day world. It used to be a little bit less intense in the times of Jesus, because again, there was no social media. The fact that you can open up your phone and in 20 minutes see more faces than probably the average person back then saw in their entire lifetime is a serious problem that you need to consider. We are not meant to see this many people. There used to be wars fought over single beautiful women, and yet now you can open up your phone, even if you're actively reporting it, and yet be presented with a fresh account of just lustful stuff straight away without you even consenting to it. So this stuff is everywhere. It is a plague, it is an epidemic. Is it an epidemic or maybe a pandemic? It's one of the two. It's everywhere, is the point that I'm trying to make. So this is where, again, as I've done shorts on it, you have to be able to stand on business. Sometimes you're going to have to rebuke these things, sometimes you're going to have to report it, get rid of it, but the more that you can essentially push that to the side, what you will find is that it creates bandwidth, it creates space for you to actually think, right, I'm going to follow this person, I'm going to create more time. One of the best things that I could give you in terms of advice, get rid of social media to begin with. I know it's kind of a bit contradictory because we're on social media right now, right? But a personal thing that I've recently done is I've actually deleted Instagram, which is weird considering my main business is based primarily online. But there are ways, there are strategies. You can control and dictate your environment. Most of my social media I can just log on from my laptop and do it, which means on my actual phone, I don't need to have anything. If you can create this empty space, this sort of newfound void where you aren't able to consume content, You don't have a reason to consume content. You don't have to follow these fake people that could be modern day Pharisees. You're left with this spare time. And what should you be doing with this spare time? That thing right there. Start reading the Bible more. I can tell you so many different substrates of this person is a Pharisee, this person is a lukewarm Christian. Follow this person, don't follow that person. It could go on forever and ever and ever because it gets more intricate, more sneaky, more clouded, more disguised. Best thing you can do is just rebuke it, get it away from it, acknowledge it and know that it's there, acknowledge that you perhaps maybe have a problem with consuming too much content, like I had. Then once you've looked at it in the eyes, rebuked it and said you don't want it no more, you turn, you let go and you face the Bible. Reading the Bible more, even if just for a page, a verse a day, will do more for you than consuming 10 to 20 different accounts. And I absolutely can promise you because I'm a living testimony of that. Very simple things. Start to change the little stuff in your lifestyle. I drive to a shared office for what I do, and I always get there a little bit early. I just like to be early when it comes to stuff like that. I'll always have these buffer periods where I'll get there and I sit in my car for a little bit. The old version of me used to scroll on social media, upload some videos. I'd say do some work, but really I'd just be consuming content. And it used to set my day up where I was very clouded, not really just going into the day with the right mindset, because something I'd see would then impact my thoughts. I'd then be thinking about that video, I'd then want to watch more of it. It was just noise, fluff. What I did today and what I've been trying to do recently is instead I just read the Bible. I don't have it with me, but I've got big ESV study Bible, I've got, you will be able to see it, I've got a KJV Bible, and then I have a really small pocket Bible. It's probably about that big, right? It literally fits in my pocket, sits in my car, sits in my bag. And all I did this morning was just read the Bible. So I've been studying the Gospel of Joshua. I know briefly where I'm up to, so all I did in my study in my pocket Bible was just pick it up and start reading from there. And that did more for my mindset today than I can ever think of any short form, long form, any social media video that I've ever seen in my life. Truly an amazing feeling. I've been confident. I've not been nowhere near as tired. I then obviously prayed after the Bible, which is another conversation in and of itself. It's just done more for me than anything that I've ever consumed online before. So if that's not proof, if that's not a testimony that you should watch out for these modern day Pharisees, but also just remove the tether instantly and just not use social media at all, or at least on a more minimal basis, you can then begin to free up time and actually spend time with God. And then when you spend time with God, you'll become more rooted, you'll become more open to understanding how He will guide you, because He is a light in the way. So I'm going to wrap the video up there. Hope you enjoyed it, and if this does impact you, I look forward to seeing the growth that some of you guys can make, because I believe that you can do it.